Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Mindful Mondays. No, it's not Monday, it's Tuesday. But for those of you who've been following us, we are not perfect. We're not trying to be perfect. And as we stated, our Mindful Monday session is on Tuesdays for this month. So we're grateful to have everybody here who has been following us, both our current members and our potential members. We're so happy that you are here. And we're going to go over the session that we spoke about last week. And this is going to be an ongoing discussion for the next few sessions. Not sure how many. We've been talking about happiness. And it is going to bring up some very powerful points today and 2 weeks ago. And we are going to be able to take some of those and go deeper down the road because they are very profound. And over here, we're just mentioning them on a very shallow level. So they are worthy of their own podcast. I know it's not your typical podcast. Typical podcast is just people talking to each other and they're recorded and people listen afterwards. This is more of a live podcast. I know we call it a podcast. Once again, we are not perfect. We do things differently and we do things very successfully. We're very grateful for what we have accomplished thus far and what we continue to accomplish. For those of you who are brand new here, welcome. My name is Alan Nemtzov. I'm the CEO and co-founder of this podcast and this company. And what we have accomplished in the last 6 years is truly remarkable. And we continue to help others in many different aspects. And we're very grateful once again to be part of this, that you trust us on a certain level to allow us into your homes, into your journey. And we take a lot of pride in it and we take responsibility for that. And for those of you, once again, who are new, I want you to know you will have an opportunity to do some Q&As afterwards, questions and answers. If there's something that is said tonight that you either don't understand or don't agree with, that is fine. You can either challenge me when this session is over, or you can just take one topic, one concept. And if that changes your life, then I've completed my job. I've done what I came to do, which is to guide each and every one of you to your higher self. And we mentioned that a few times, that there are 3 levels of every human being of how they connect to the universe in general. There's the lower self, the average self, and the higher self. The lower self, when a person is in their lower self, usually when a person is stressed, usually when a person is overwhelmed, they go into lower self. And lower self is when what we talk about usually is about other people. The average self, which can happen just average, a lot of it comes from conditioning, just average social society, I should say, social interactions. People are usually in the average self. And the average self, average people talk about are experiences, things that happen to them, experience things that they're going through. And this is how they create conversations among individuals. That's an average self. There's no good or bad here. It's not about what's right or what's wrong. It's not about what's good or what's bad. It's just identifying where it is and where you are at and where you want to be in your life. What type of life do you want to live? Some people are extremely content being an average self. Some people are so used to being at a lower self, that's where they want to be. That's where I was at, a lower self, for many years. When I was obese and weighing over 300 pounds, I was at a lower self, very lower self. And yes, I gossiped and talked about other people, blaming, criticizing, judging, believing that was how I was going to be able to function. That's just how I did it. I didn't know any other way to survive. I did some average self also talking about experiences, but there was a lot of blaming and criticism, which is the lower self. The higher self, which is somebody who aspires to grow, both emotionally and spiritually and intellectually in their life, they reach a higher self. and that's where they want to live, a higher self talks about concepts. And if you'll notice over here, for those of you who've been following us in the Mindful Mondays, we talk from a higher self. We don't talk about individuals. We don't talk about experiences. We talk about concepts. And that is the higher self. For some people, they really enjoy doing that. That's where they want to be, and that's where they want to live. But they're above talking from an average self. There are positive sides to this and negative sides to this. Positive sides to it is obviously elevating yourself from the average and living life from a completely different perspective, something that every single individual has the ability to do, to live from a higher self. The downside can be from it is that you can become, I wouldn't say lonely, but you're not going to be among the average. So you're going to separate yourself and attract to yourself only people that want to interact from concepts. And sometimes it can be lonely at times when a person does that. And again, I'm not talking in a bad way. They just are talking from a higher level of speech, from a higher self. And that is the focus. So if the average person is talking about experiences, when a person elevates themselves and gets to the higher self, they no more gain the same benefits of talking from the average self. And they certainly don't want to talk from the lower self. And it's really for you, every individual, to decide which self they would like to be. Do they want to be a lower self? A lot of people believe that is how they are going to function in life, and they need to be at the lower self. They don't really think about it. It's more on a subconscious level. And it's a way of surviving. That's all they know. It's a coping mechanism at best. The average self, some people want to talk about that because there's a lot of benefits. You feel part of the tribe. You feel comfortable among other human beings, and you're able to converse and interact with others from an average place. And again, it's not good or bad. It just is. There's some people who are more ambitious in a certain sense and prefer to talk from a higher self. Doesn't make them better, just different. So most people waver. They are at lower self, they're average self, and they go to higher self sometimes. And for the most part, they stay at average self. Those are your average people. That's why we call it the average self. Some people prefer to reach a higher self, and they want to make that their norm. They want to make that the life that they want to live. And they live life from a completely different perspective. In our program, what we do is we take people who come in who are usually average to lower self, and we heal what is bringing them down to be a lower self. And we elevate them through our process to take them not just to average self, but take them to understand and comprehend what it is to live from a higher self. And when an individual reaches that, it is, like I stated, it is a completely different way of life. It is a fascinating way to live. There are still questions when you live in your higher self. However, when a person lives in a higher self, they are not seeking answers. The level of wisdom that comes from living in the higher self is that we have questions, because the truth is life is a mystery. It's an absolute mystery. We start to comprehend. A person who lives in a higher self understands the mystery from a deeper level, is less agitated, less fearful, more confident, more hopeful. And one of the major changes is does not need an answer. The questions are deeper. The questions are more profound. However, not knowing is not making a person anxious or affecting their decision-making in life. That is what happens when a person lives at higher self. For some people, they prefer to stay at lower self and live that way. Why am I spending time on this? Because our topic, and we spoke about this last week, is happiness. Happiness is different for every person. What happiness means for you is not necessarily what happiness means for another person. In other words, what makes you happiness, what makes you happy, I should say, is not the same thing that is going to make somebody else. And to repeat the AI description of what happiness is a complex state of well-being characterized by positive emotions, life satisfaction, and a sense of contentment. It's a subjective experience that can be influenced by various factors, including personal values, social connections, and life circumstances. While happiness can involve moments of joy and pleasure, it also encompasses a deeper sense of fulfillment and meaning in life. That last sentence, it also encompasses a deeper sense of fulfillment and meaning in life, is touching on this concept of happiness. Not everybody aspires to that level. Some people would like to get to that level, and they don't understand why they cannot achieve that level of happiness. And they become content in less, with less, and not in less, but with less. And they are satisfied or tolerate less for several reasons. Either they don't feel that they deserve to be at that level, that that level is only for very spiritual, elevated people, for saints, for spiritual individuals, tzaddikim and such. There are other people who believe that it's not possible for them to achieve such levels. Another reason why people settle with less. And other people think that they're just not capable, that there's so much in lower or average self and so conditioned to live there that it is too frustrating to attempt, or the commitment is too difficult to reach higher self, and therefore they make do with their level of happiness. The sad part for people like that is that when they age, when they get older, and I'm talking about in their 70s or 80s, a lot of individuals will start having tremendous regret and remorse for not have tried harder, for not have attempted one more time. Because you never know how many more times you need to attempt in order to achieve happiness. It may be just around the corner. It may be right there. I heard a great analogy to this is that successful humans have to pay success tax. We pay taxes. We pay property taxes. We pay income taxes. We pay sales taxes. We also pay in life success taxes. That the struggles and challenges that we go to in order to achieve, to reach a higher self, is a success tax that we have to pay. And we never know when we complete paying the success tax and then the success arrives. Falling short, slipping is temporary. Giving up is final. So if a person never gives up and they keep paying that success tax, one never knows when the universe has determined that they have accomplished whatever needs to be accomplished, and they have paid enough tax, and now they get that free ride of success. But if you give up, you will never find that. Giving up is final. Failing is temporary. Failing is part of the success tax. And that's where those three things where people think that maybe they're not capable because they've been paying so much success tax, they start to believe that they're just not capable. And the only way to know if you are capable is to continue. However, if you give up, you will never find that. And what the irony is, and this is why I say life is a mystery, that many times when a person reaches different milestones of success, they realize that some of the things that they were after, some of the things that they wanted to achieve, is not really what they wanted. That it was overrated. It was really a coping mechanism desire. It was really just a way to get out of their current state because they were dissatisfied, unhappy, frustrated, not willing to tolerate any longer their current life situation. So they want to get out of it, and they believe that if I get A or B or C or whatever it is that I will accomplish, I will be happy. There's a reason. And then once they do achieve somewhat of that, they go, this is it. I'm still unhappy. This is not really what I wanted. And this is one of the major components, and we spoke about this in our previous podcast, that one of the ways we asked 4 questions, and I'm going to review it, even for those of you who are there. It's always good to go over it. I'm just getting my notes because I have it written down. The 4 questions to ask yourself if you want to continue paying success tax and get to that final payment so you can get to the level of happiness that you want to achieve. I just wanted to interject here and have a announcement to make. And I'm going to make it here, and then I'll make it again later. That next Sunday, May 25th, is a health expo in New Square, which is in Spring Valley, New York. And I will be there live, giving a live talk. And I invite you all to come, introduce yourself, say hello. I'd love to meet you. There'll be a chance for Q&As. There'll be a talk. It won't be a podcast, but similar concept. I'll be giving a talk. And then I will be there. It's on from 11 till 6. I'll be speaking at 12 o'clock noon. Please come. If you know me, want to see me, I would love to say hello to you face to face and introduce yourself, whether you're a member or you're a non-member. Even if you're just on our podcasts on a Monday, I would love to say hello and introduce yourself. Our other coaches are going to be there also. And I will be there, like I said, be talking from 12 till 1. That's what I just wanted to make that announcement. We'll make it again later. So let's get back. That's why we spoke about this in the previous session, that to achieve happiness, you have to ask yourself where you are at. You have to determine where you are at in your success tax. And if you don't determine where you're at, it is going to be extremely difficult and almost impossible to achieve happiness. People think that all they have to do is determine what they want, where they want to go. However, if you don't ask these questions, you're not going to know clearly where you want to go and what it is that makes you happy. So the first question is, what makes you happy? What is it that makes you happy? This is a question that only you can answer. When I was in my struggles, when I was obese and dealing with my food addiction, if somebody would have asked me that question, I would not have a clue what to answer. No idea. $1 million. And if somebody would challenge me and say, really, that's what's going to make you happy? And I would say, I have no idea. I remember when I was in rehab for my addiction, and every day they would make us stand. It was a four-sided room, and they would put up 4 different feelings: sad, happy. I don't even remember what the other ones were. Maybe afraid, fearful, I don't know, hopeful. Could be, I don't remember. And they asked us to stand where we were feeling that day. And that was the hardest part of the whole rehab, is to determine where I'm at. And I would just stand in one of the corners, meaning that I'm between these 2 feelings, because the truth is I had no clue. People who lack clarity, people who live in a frustrating life, who live life from the lower self, are going to be unable to really determine for themselves what makes them happy. They don't know what happiness is. They don't know how to get happy. They think they do, because if it just gets me out of a frustrating moment, I will be happy. But that's not really happiness. That's a relief. A relief is not happiness. Happiness is a much more profound feeling. So what is it that makes you happy? And if you're having a difficult time answering that question, you may want to reach out to our office and find out how we can help you. Because that is something that takes work, inner work, to determine this simple question: what makes you happy? And if you don't believe me, if you have friends or family, people that you are close to, you call them up and ask them, tell me, what makes you happy? What do you want? You'll be amazed about how people will feel the question is awkward. What are you asking? I don't know. Oh, I'm happy if my kids make it to school on time. Really? That's your happiness? That's your whole level of happiness? And when you start to dig deeper and ask them that, not that it's a bad thing that you get your kids on the bus on time, but is that really your purpose in life? Not that it's not part of it, but what is it? And people, when they stop for a moment, they stop existing and start living, which are 2 completely different concepts. We're not going to get into that today. They start thinking a little bit into that. Wow, what does make me happy? Because if you don't know where you're headed, you're never going to get there. So what makes you happy? What makes you upset? There are things that make us upset. There are things that we don't like. A lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to express that. And it's not about venting or complaining either. It's just about stating for yourself. You can write it down if you want to journal and keep it in your own journal, your own diary, and write down what makes you upset. I give you that as some homework till our next podcast. To write down in your journal for yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody. What makes you happy? What makes you upset? You'll be amazed that the list of what makes you upset typically is going to be much greater than the list of what makes you happy. Interesting. What do you tolerate in your life? There's certain things that we tolerate, that we accept, and we understand that it's part of life. And then comes a little bit easier one to determine, but also a very powerful question. What do you refuse to tolerate in your life? Some of those are very easy and blatant. And it's great when you know where you're going, that anything that is going to block you from getting there, you just refuse to tolerate that. Once you ask yourself and answer these 4 questions, the next thing, again, we're still reviewing a little bit from our previous podcast. Why do these things make you happy? Why do these things make you upset? Why do you tolerate these things? Why do you refuse to tolerate certain things? And as you see, as you're going deeper into getting clarity for yourself, where you are at, that's all this is. So far, it's just about where you're at. And maybe you tolerate these things because it's easy. Maybe you don't believe that you're able to achieve, like we said. Maybe you believe that you're not capable of achieving happiness. You're not worthy. Any of it is possible. Maybe you just don't think that it's possible for you to achieve happiness. So you're willing to tolerate less. Willing to tolerate less. And I remember hearing this many years ago, and it just made it more frustrating for me to hear this. So I apologize if I'm making it frustrating for anybody to hear this. Because I had such a low sense of self-esteem. I had very little hope for myself in general. Failing at weight loss so many times. Always angry. Very frustrated, not understanding why. There wasn't as much information around available as there is today. It's such a more open discussion, and people are so much more aware of their inner frustrations and feelings, something that's common knowledge for people, that I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what made me happy. Seriously, I was just at a complete block. And if you are at that level, I emphasize, I really do. I empathize. I validate those feelings, they're real. Respect them, they're real. There's a reason that you are feeling that way, and it's not your fault. It's really not your fault. There are a multitude of reasons that a person feels that way. It can come from trauma. It can come from epigenetics, which is transgenerational trauma passed down. It comes from conditioning. But for the most part, it's really not your fault. Being aware of it is the beginning to healing and growth and getting out of that. So again, what makes you happy? What makes you upset? What do you tolerate? What do you refuse to tolerate? And these questions will guide you and help you to get to a understanding of what is happiness for you. So that's a review, mostly, of what we spoke about in the previous session. Yes, we expounded on it and spent more time. So if you missed the podcast from 2 weeks ago, you've gotten a lot of it just now. Clarity, the solution. Now we understand a bit of the problem. And we're going to talk more about the things that block us. And like I said, these are concepts that we're going to touch on today, but we're going to get deeper into as the summer progresses. And we're going to be talking about happiness for the next little while. I hope you don't mind talking about happiness. It's a great topic. There's two driving forces in life. We teach in our programs that humans do not do random, that every human, and in psychology, we call it a secondary gain. Every single thing that a person does is for a reason. Not just humans, not just mammals, but all living creatures. All living creatures do the same thing. We all do things for secondary gain. All living creatures. So you can't say, oh, no real reason. It's not true. You're just not aware that there is a reason that you are doing what you're doing. Where you are at today is because of decisions that you made 5, 10 years ago. The decisions that you make today are going to affect your life in 5 years from now and 10 years from now. Rarely, not never, rarely, a decision is so important for the moment that you're going to get the full results of that decision and the full impact and consequences of that decision today. For the most part, the decisions that we make today are going to affect us much later down the road. So where you are today, it's because decisions that you made 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you are feeling the effects of those decisions today. When somebody wants happiness, it's a decision, as Abraham Lincoln stated. Every man, back then we were saying, they used to say men, they didn't have the whole gender war that we have today. He was able to say man. Every human, to be politically correct, every human determines how happy they want to be. If you are unhappy, it's because of a decision that you made probably more than a year ago, probably closer to 5 years ago, and you are feeling the effects of it today. Maybe even the decision you made 10 years ago, depending how old you are. If you're in your young 20s or in our young teens and childhood, we don't make decisions in those ages usually that affect us in our adulthood, typically. Where you are at, it's because of those decisions. You want to change where you are at? The decisions you're making need to be changed today so that in 5 years from now, because 5 years from now will come, in 5 years, will change. You can't change 5 years from now in 5 years from now. Doesn't work like that. And that's one of the struggles of life. Like I said, life is a mystery, that we don't really feel the full effects of our decisions most of the time, not never, until much, much later. And we believe, oh, it's not so bad. I'll just do this now. I can get away with it. I can manage. I can tolerate. I can live with less. I'll be okay. And then 5 years down the road, we don't understand why we are not happy. And we don't realize that 5 years ago, we made a decision that we could tolerate less, that we're content with less, and we don't want more. There was a great theorist, and I don't remember his name. I've mentioned him several times. He was born with a growth defect He was only about 2.5 feet tall, I believe, maybe 3 feet, not more than that. I'd gone through a couple hundred of surgeries. And he got married, had, I don't know if he had one child, two children. And I didn't get to see him live, but I did get to see him speak in a video of him. And he was fascinating. He used to travel around the world. He was a great motivational speaker. He said, dream big, dream big. He says, if you have figured out how your dreams are going to come true, then you're not dreaming big enough. The universe, the infinite intelligence is infinite. For me, I call it God. Is infinite in its power. The universe is infinite with abundance, infinite with blessings. There is enough to go around. Currently 8.2 billion humans on the planet. And it keeps growing. And the universe is tolerating and able to sustain this larger amount of people. 10 years ago, we were at 7 billion. We've grown 1.2 billion more people in the last about 10 years. I don't know exact time, so don't quote me on that, on the statistics. But from 1 billion, 7 billion, 7, that's 14% growth. 8.2 billion people currently on the planet. And the universe is still able to sustain every single one of us. Fascinating. A mystery. There's a much abundance. If you're not dreaming big, an audacious goal, and you figured out how you're going to reach that goal, you just ain't dreaming big enough. We have a goal in Ascent, which is the company that sponsors these podcasts. We have a goal to guide 100 million people to reach and live in their highest self. 100 million people. An audacious goal. We've achieved several hundred. 100 million. That is our goal. To guide you, 100 million people, to achieve and live in their highest self. Wow. That is some goal. I have no clue how that is possible. No idea. It's not my problem. I'm a human being. The universe will take care of that. But that's our goal. That's the goal because I've done this work that I'm talking about now. And I've determined for myself what makes me happy. Why it makes me happy. And the why it makes me happy is more important than what makes me happy. And it has become my passion and my purpose. Because for me, every individual, every single one that I have guided, I'm not a healer, I'm a nurse, but I don't heal people. Every human being that I have guided and assisted to reach their highest self proves to me that the first horrible 40 years of my life that were stressful, that were traumatic, were not in vain. That is why I do that, because it gives me purpose. That's my personal goal. And I only realized then, like I stated, I didn't even know what happy meant. The only reason I was able to do that, because of this work. And the reason why I'm at today, that is because of decisions that I made 23 years ago. And as interesting or as ironic as it may be, I didn't make those decisions because I wanted to at the time. I made those decisions because I had to. I was in such a low place that I had little choice. It was either Commit suicide, give up, or do something. That's where I was at. So, not by virtue, by any stretch of the imagination, it was all circumstantial. And today, the decisions I make, I get to make those decisions. I get to continue to do this work. I don't consider this work an effort. This to me is not effort. This is a joy. This is a pleasure. This is a blessing. This is a passion from a purpose that came from what? From a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, multitude of mistakes. But because of decisions that I made 20 years ago, for the last 20 years, that's why I'm at where I am at today. Some good decisions, some not so good decisions. And everything that I have today is based on decisions that I made in the past. There are two forces that drive every human being. You can deny this if you want. You can. It won't get you happiness. The two forces that drive every human being are fear and desire. Emotions. Fear and desire are emotions. Emotions stand for, that was the words I told you that was on the wall when I was in rehab, that I wasn't sure where to stand. I was petrified of the concept of emotions. Emotion stands for energy in motion. That's what emotions are. It's energy. Everything in this world is energy, spiritual energy, because energy is not physical. It's in a physical body, it's in physical beings, but it is a spiritual, whether you are religious or not, whether you believe or not, does not take away the fact. It's a fact. It's not a belief. It's not a perception. Anybody who says they don't believe in spiritual forces is just an idiot. It really is. Because energy is what makes the world move. The planets, gravity is an energy. Electricity is energy. The sun gives off energy. Our heartbeats is energy. Everything that we have has energy. When a person dies, their source of energy is removed from them, and they have a lifeless body. No energy. Life is a spiritual force. Where that comes from, that's your own personal belief. Me personally, I believe it comes from God. I believe it comes from Hashem. That's my personal belief. I'm not telling anybody to believe that or not. That's not my point. The fact that it's here has nothing to do with your level of belief, has nothing to do with your level of trust. It's something that denying it is like on a sunny day, telling yourself it's not really sunny. It's a delusional thought. So there's nothing to deny. It's a fact. It's not an opinion. The two forces that drive us, the two energy forces that drive us to make those decisions is fear and desire. When we are in fear, we are doing things in order for what? To get away from where we are at, or afraid that something is going to happen. When we are in fear, our desire becomes control. We want to control. Those two energy forces, fear and desire, is what fuels every single thing that we do, every decision that we make, everyone, many times. It is subconscious, and we're not aware of it. And once again, you can deny this all you want. You can disagree with me all you want. These are facts. These are not opinions. Fear and desire, the two energy forces that was given to us when we were created, when we were born. And that is what fuels us through life. If you work towards living to your highest self, where you want to live, achieve happiness, you stop living from fear and control, and you start living from desire, what you want. Two completely different lives. Your decisions could become completely different, and where you end up in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, even in a year from now, will be different because of a decision that you made today. If you make a decision that from now on, I would like to attempt, I would like to achieve as a goal, to live from desire and not live from fear, you are already well on your way. You've made a decision today to live from desire, to not live from control. A scary thought if you've been living from control your whole life till now. A very scary thought if you've been living from fear. There is no wiggle room here. There is no gray area. There is no maybe. There is no exaggeration. There's no embellishment. There's no excuse me. There is no rationalization with this. You can use all that stuff all you want. It will not get you to your higher self. It will not get you to happiness. And I speak from personal experience. But just that decision that you would like to live your life from desire is the first step in achieving living from a higher self and living with happiness. I'm going to stop here because there's a lot. And I could go on. I will go on, not tonight. I don't want to overload. Like I said, this topic is too broad and too profound and too fundamental in life to just have it in these 2 sessions. Happiness is such a fundamental aspect of life. Getting down to these roots and causes of why we are where we are and where we want to go would be such a shame to just take an hour here, 45 minutes here, and 45 minutes 2 weeks ago. I've been talking about this concept for 23 years. It doesn't get old. Not that I'm going to be talking with you for 23 years. However, we will be talking about it more and getting deeper. So I'm going to end off, I'm going to make a little review and give you some homework if you like. If you don't like, if you don't want to, if you want to stay where you are at, then I'm not sure why you are here. However, if you are here, you're already proving to you, to yourself, and to the universe that you want better. You want more. You want to accomplish things in your life. You don't want to tolerate less anymore. You want to achieve. What a beautiful decision to come here. Because that decision that you're making today to come here will affect your life from now and until 10 years from now, if you take action with it. Decisions alone are insufficient. The old joke is, there are 3 frogs on a log. And one makes a decision to jump in the water. How many frogs are left on the log? 3. Because it just made a decision. It didn't do anything. A decision alone is insufficient. It will not get you from the log, off the log, into the water. It will not. However, if there are 3 frogs on the log, and one takes action and jumps in, how many frogs are left on the log? 2. Because it jumped in. If you're struggling making that decision, taking that action, not sure what action to take, I want to know that our program is sent by KTPO. Addresses, just like we're talking now, addresses this exact concept and gets you to healing. You can reach out to our office at 845-400-9466 and set up a free consultation with one of our coaches and talk about this concept a little deeper. If you would like to change something in your life, move forward, change the needle, stop paying those success taxes. Because, like I stated, the last one may be right around the corner. And you being here is just the last one before, boom. It's the last one. You never know. You will never know if you don't take action. You will never know if you give up. But if you keep going and keep trying, is it difficult at times? Yes. Is it challenging at times? Absolutely. However, if you do this work, eventually you get to a place where it becomes a pleasure, not an effort. It becomes an honor. You get to do this work. See, I get to do this work. To me, it's not an effort. Not that I don't put effort into it, but it's not an effort. It's not a burden is a better word. It's not a burden anymore. It's an honor. I'm blessed to be able to do this work. I get to do this work. Once again, I want to repeat that announcement I stated earlier. So again, if you want to reach out to us, either email. There, if you're here, if you can put in the link in the chat, you can email us at ascentbyktpo.com or at Gmail, I'm sorry. Darren will put that into the email, into the chat, the link, or you can call the office, 845-400-9466, and set up a consultation free. Thank you. The email is in the chat for those of you who are online. For those of you who are calling in, 845-400-9466, 845-400-9466. And we'll be more than happy to talk to you. We're going to open up for a Q&A for questions and answers. But once again, I will be in New Square at the Terrace Charna Wedding Hall. There is a health expo. The health expo is from 11 to 7, I believe. I will be there most of that time, but I will be speaking at 12 noon. And please come and say hello. I'd love to introduce yourself, and I would love to see you in person and talk to you for a minute. I will be there. We'll be doing a live Q&A as well as talking to people afterwards. So we're going to open up. We'll continue in approximately 2 weeks. I believe the dates for our next one, of course, you will get notification. I believe it will be the 16th, since 2 weeks is short. So it will be the 16th and the 30th next month, which is a Monday. We'll do Mindful Mondays on Monday. How about that? Anybody would like a question, you can unmute. Press *6 if you're calling in, or if you're online, just raise your hand. We'll take your questions as long as people ask for a little while. And thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. And we'll continue where we left off on this great topic. Who would like to get us started with a question or a comment?
What's the
9466.
400?
400, yes. Thanks so much. Can you give examples of when it's coming from fear or desire? Sure. We can talk about many aspects of it. There's many examples. Let's see, you're having guests. And at the last moment, or not even the last moment, you are afraid that you didn't make enough. And why you were afraid? Because somebody that you're inviting over, maybe it's a relative, somebody you haven't seen in a while, and you want to impress them. There's a fear. And you're afraid that if you don't impress them, they're going to neglect you, you won't find favor in their eyes. So there's a secondary gain there. So you rush and make a decision to order extra food, to cook extra, and you put this tremendous burden on yourself to over-accomplish and to overcook and over-prepare and make your whole house crazy because you want to impress somebody for whatever reason. That reason can come from multiple. I'm just giving an example. In the world, sometimes maybe it's somebody that you want to get hired and you have somebody from work who's there. People do this all the time. So the reason that they added all this, that person added so much burden on themselves to cook all these extra different dishes was not out of desire, but out of fear. Or maybe this person, I had a conflict with them, could be a family member. So I really want to find them to find favor in my eyes. So I'm going to people please, something that we call fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. I don't know if you've heard of it. Fight or flight is the common response when a person is in fear. Freeze is where you become overwhelmed and you just freeze. Fawn is now you start to people please and try to appease the other person who you're having this conflict with so you don't have any more conflict. So there's the fear there. Same scenario, doing it out of desire. You like this certain food and you enjoy when your guests eat it for the simple reason that it's one of your favorite dishes that you cook really well and you like to put a smile on other people's faces and you just want to cook out of the love in your heart to give and give people an enjoyment. Not that you're looking for a compliment, not that you're needing validation, but you just desire to have a nice table. So you put out, maybe not your best stuff. You don't go over and extend yourself to that level, but you're doing it out of love. And when you do it out of desire and you do it out of love, you're not going to do it with stress. You're going to enjoy the preparation. You enjoy the setting the table. You're not going to yell at your kids because they didn't set the table right, or they didn't polish the silverware correctly, or they didn't use the right dishes because you're doing it from love. When you're doing it from fear, watch out. The amount of stress that's going to go on in that home, preparing that meal, is going to be above and beyond. It doesn't matter what that meal is. It could be Sheva Brachos, it could be Shabbos, it could be anything. Doesn't matter what the celebration or the reason for the meal. But if you're doing it to impress, out of fear, then maybe you're trying to make a shidduch or whatever, again, whatever the situation is, then the amount of stress that you use and anxiety to prepare is going to far exceed what you do when you do a desire. Was that a helpful example? Waiting for a response. She's not responding? I don't know. Hopefully it was helpful. I don't know. Okay. Anybody else have a question or a comment? I think it's clear. Wow. So you only do an action that feels like it's coming from desire. And if not, you're ready to stop and not cook? No, I didn't say that. You see how you're jumping from one extreme to the other. It's not a this or that. It's fight, flight, and 1 second. I'll answer the other person in a minute. You only do an action that feels like it's coming from desire. I didn't say that's the only thing that you do. It's important to be aware that if you are doing an action from fear, be aware that it's from fear, and that awareness in of itself will lower your stress level. That if you are doing stuff from fear, and we all do, like I said, fear and desire, the two things that fuel everything that we do, that clarity and that awareness is key. So in face the fear, yeah, be honest about it. And face the fear, absolutely. Recognize what that fear is. There is a belief there, there's a fear. Knowing what that fear is, knowing that it's coming from fear, and then your actions are going to change. When you pause for a moment and you realize, oh, I'm doing this from fear. The reason you're in fear now is because of a decision that you made a year ago, 5 years ago. That's why you're in fear today. You're not in fear now because of today. You're in fear now because of something that you did in the past. That awareness in of itself is the beginning to getting out of denial in the healing process. This is what we do in our program. We work on these things. We become aware of what our actions are. In other words, what the source of them are. So it's not about the behavior itself. It's understanding what is the source of that behavior. The end then is, if I'm doing things from fear, is that the way I want to continue to live? Do I want to change that? Do you want to change living from fear? I'm asking you. Wow, thanks so much for your time. Absolutely. Do you want to change living from fear? Of course. Okay. There's the beginning. You can reach out to the office and talk to them and learn more about them. That's what we do. That awareness that you're like, wow, yes. Okay, great question. Somebody else asked, flight, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is a type of, is it a bird? It's a type of animal. A fawn, I think, is a female deer, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. In other words, a very simple animal. Fawn, yes, F-A-W-N. A young deer is called a fawn. So in other words, it means a very quiet, unassuming animal that doesn't cause harm. So when you fawn somebody, what you're doing is you're trying to find favor through flattering them. So you flatter them and you say how wonderful they are because you want to avoid confrontation, find favor in their eyes. So it's fight, flight, or fawn. If everything else fails, anybody else have a question or a comment about something that we spoke about? Yes, 49. I see you are unmuted. How
Yeah,
can I help?
hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I didn't know how to unmute. Or someone else?
No, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, hi. I'm new to the thing. I saw the ad weeks ago, and I got the number, I got the text with a reminder. I'm very grateful to everything you said, and especially what you just said about the third level. I don't know how to explain it, but you said it so beautifully. I'm trying to repeat what resonated with me. So basically, there's the fight, flight, and what's the other one?
Fawn.
The word?
A-W-N, which means a baby deer.
F or S? I couldn't hear that.
F as in Frank, A-W.
Oh, fawn.
Fawn. A fawn is
okay.
young deer because a young
Yeah,
deer.
I understood.
You
Sorry,
understood
what?
Yeah.
I understood the explanation before. Yeah, it brought out even more how I basically understood myself very much now. What I went through when I went through around 6-7 years ago, a story which basically I didn't want to go back. It was basically a relationship with someone I didn't know beforehand, and basically someone who wanted to be my friend. But I do remember how first I felt the first thing, first I basically felt like running, but I didn't want to, or I couldn't for some reason. That's how my mind felt. And then within a few seconds, I felt, oh, I'm going to please him. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So it just makes sense. I've been doing other work. Yeah, but I'm really curious to hear more about your stuff. And I live in Mumsy, so I might be going to the event on Sunday. I would like to hear more. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And maybe if I could ask a question. Yeah. What?
Absolutely. What we'll do is I have your number here. I'll have the office reach out to you and we can take it from there. And you can ask questions.
Yeah. What I really I heard your talk, I think it was before Pesach, a few weeks before Pesach. I'm not sure exactly if it was 2-3 weeks before. I heard your speech. It was very nice and gave me so much koyach and chizuk to go further. How people ask questions, and you gave literally a 2-minute exercise. It just wasn't. I didn't know how to. And now I tried star 1 and then star 6, and star 6 worked. What I liked was the 2-minute exercises, just to stand by the wall and do some stretching, which really gave me wow, this is beautiful. Going with the mind, with the body. No, I forgot my question I wanted to ask. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. maybe I'll remind myself. But I just wanted to say that basically my question was like what I shared before, how to, like, for now, if like how to go about. Basically, I had a very good therapist, which helped me tremendously, like, to get out of that place of basically, one second. I feel like on one hand, I don't want to go back to my old feelings. I don't want to go back to feeling as a victim, a feeling like I'm not there anymore, and I want to go further. Baruch Hashem, things are good now. And the thing is, my question is basically some like guidance or like validation. I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to get, but I feel like my question is, what's your mahalach? Like, how are you working on basically to go back to, or what's beneficial for me? I don't know. Like to go back to my old bad stories I had in life, or rather to continue and to see like where it comes up in my current day-to-day life, like situation.
Very good question. So I don't believe in going back to trauma. And it sounds like you've been through trauma, maybe aware, maybe unaware of where that trauma is and what happened. Or it could be epigenetics, which means that it's transgenerational and it's not something that you actually experience, but it's just in your DNA, which is also a huge possibility. But based on the way you're asking your question, it sounds to me like you've been through some trauma in your life, in your younger life. And the fear to go in there and open a can of worms and rehash that is not the way we work. Because, and I'll tell you why. It is, you are a human being, yes?
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah.
Are you a human being?
The answer is yes.
Okay, beautiful. As a human being, which you already know, it is impossible to change the past, correct?
You're saying, yeah.
What you said or did yesterday, is there anything that you do or can do to change that?
Is it a question?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
It's like the trying to make it clear. You're asking me.
Is there anything that you can do to change what you said or did yesterday?
I can't change the past, I think, but I believe it's.
You can't,
what I
right?
could change is how I'm going to deal with when the memories come back, how I'm going to deal with.
One second. Can't change the past. What you can change is your perception of the past. Yesterday, let's say you had an argument with somebody, just for argument, I'm just giving an example, right? Yes?
Yeah.
And then he said, you know what? I don't want to be upset about this person. They have a rough life. I don't want to have an argument with them. I don't want to look at them with a bad eye. And something, I actually started the argument. I shouldn't have been so nasty. So you decide that the argument that you had was not your friend or individual that you were interacting with trying to harm you, but it was a reaction for you being aggressive. Make sense so far? You understood that?
I didn't understand that. I almost understood it. It wasn't an argument, but it was me being aggressive.
Let's say I have an argument with you now.
Okay.
And then tomorrow, you're angry at me because you had an argument with me. Yes? You feel hurt.
Yeah.
And then you stop and say, 1 minute, I'm the one, in other words, you say about yourself that you're the one who started the argument, you said something nasty, and what I did was only to respond to your nasty criticism. I'm just giving an example, right? You got that so far?
Yeah.
So now you look at the argument from a different perspective, right? You say, 1 minute, I was the instigator, and that person was only reacting because I was really nasty. So I'm not so angry at that person anymore. And I understand why I had this disagreement. Make sense so far?
Basically, like looking back afterhand, it's the picture is different. It's like,
Correct.
okay, so
Exactly.
maybe the person was angry. Yeah.
I can't change the argument, but I can change my perspective of the argument. Make sense?
I could change the respect. Yeah.
Same
How I'm
thing.
looking back at it as, yeah, either I was overwhelmed and acting this way, or the other person was,
Correct.
yeah, acting from such a place.
Same thing with trauma. We can't change the trauma, but we can change our perspective of the trauma. That's what we do. There's a certain belief that was created when that happened. You may or may not even be aware of that belief that was created, which caused the conditioning, which now puts you in a place of how you're acting today. Could be 10 years later, 20 years later, could be 40 years later. That is our Mahaus. That is what we do. We get down to the belief, the perception that you created, not your fault, but you created due to what happened to you. Not so important, not that it's not important for you, but it's not important for the healing process to know what exactly happened. We need to get down to the perception and belief that was created, that became a conditioning in you, the way that you think today. Like I said, decisions that we make today affects us in 10 years from now. Decisions we made 10 years ago affects us today. So if you had an argument with your friend yesterday and you made a decision yesterday that you're not going to talk to that person anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's going to affect you for the next 10 years. You're going to avoid them. Anytime you hear about them, you may even gossip or criticize them. Now, what happens if after then, in 10 years from now, you say, this is ridiculous. I was the instigator in that. I can look at it from a different perspective. Now you're not angry at them anymore, right?
Yes, I understand that, yeah.
So that's what we do. We get down to the belief and the perception that was created because of different traumas. We don't change the past. We change the perspective. Once we're able to do that, we can comprehend why people, like that example of cooking, right? Having guests and cooking. Are we doing it from fear or are we doing it from desire? And if we're doing it from fear, why am I behaving from fear? Make sense?
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Thank you for unmuting. It's in the chat for those of you who are interested, the time and date of the session on Sunday, 11 to 7.
Hi. I have a question about the feelings wheel.
Okay.
Can I ask now?
About the feelings wheel? What do you mean? About the concept of it?
No. About, like,